Namaskar, good afternoon. This is Purnima from Wisconsin. Welcome to Parlay with Purnima. Today we have a wonderful guest from UK, David Atherton. He is a journalist and broadcaster, a veteran of over 400 TV, radio interviews, and appeared in various stations like BBC, ITV, Talk TV, and he's also contributor of Talk TV's The James Whale Show. Welcome, David. Appreciate you talking to us this afternoon. I wanted to connect on the European situations, geopolitics, and as well as the religion aspect of the Islam and the rise of Islam in Europe once again, and Leicester anti-Hindu attacks, because you wrote a lot about Leicester incidents, and also with Ukraine being in the focus for the last year. So I see a rise of Ottoman Empire's inspired Islam in the Europe once again. So welcome, thank you. And
good evening. On that one, well, I think we need a 1683 siege of Vienna in repelling the Ottomans from the barbarians from Europe. But no, in 1683, the Ottomans tried to reconquer Western Europe, and they met their match at the siege of Vienna in 1683, where Jan Sobieski III led the Polish army from the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and defeated the Ottomans. They were never to darken our door until 1917. So, the threat of Islam in Europe, first of all, it is severe. The politicians in Europe are completely spineless and coward. They display great cowardice about it. They know exactly what the what the Islamic extremists are up to in Europe at the moment. They know these people, if they come in by boat, dinghy, on the train or flying or whatever, they apply for asylum. They know they won't automatically have Western democratic and won't suddenly adopt Enlightenment and Western democratic ideals, also equality of women and the LGBT community. They know that they've been taught, from the Quran, that things like homosexuality are evil. Women are inferior to men, and they bring these attitudes with them over to Europe. And I'm afraid to say it's all getting quite nasty and quite dangerous and quite frightening, actually. To give you an example, in Britain, a Batley grammar school teacher. Batley's a heavily Muslim area in West Yorkshire, and 2 years ago, he, as a religious education teacher, said to the class, "I'm just about to show you an image of Muhammad, and if you don't want to look at it, or you're going to be offended by it, please leave the classroom now." And it was a chat about free speech and free expression. And cut a long story short, the Islamic rabble, extremists, turned up outside his school, and 2 years later, he's still living in a safe house. He's changed his name, and he hasn't returned to teaching. It's just absolutely appalling. And for example, there was a Danish guy who burned the Quran. He did it in Denmark. He did it in Sweden as well. And they're banned for his blood. And and you don't have to look too far. For example, in Pakistan, I read today that a Chinese engineer was berating his Pakistani workers. They built a hydro scheme on the border with Afghanistan. He was berating his Pakistani workers for not working hard enough during Ramadan, and he's been arrested for blasphemy. These attitudes. They're coming into Europe. You can't reason or argue with these people. The only thing they understand is false.
But I'm very curious in terms of the role of media, role of politicians, and also the politics around it. The Islamophobia seemed to be pushed as a political agenda in order to advance Islamic theocracy. You talked about democracy. Islam has nothing to do with democracy. It's not democratic. Islam has nothing to do with accepting other religion. The reason they say that the whole world is a promised land. That's why they actually move from one land to another land. Today you have 2 billion Muslims
Yeah.
You have 10 million mosques in the world, 50,
Yeah.
57 countries.
Yeah.
I'm just curious as to if we can then, focus on the Leicester event
Yeah.
and see
Sure.
what has happened and why, what caused it. And also, I've seen a tremendous amount of reports
Sure.
how they have instigated, but they have placed the blame on Hindus.
Sure. Well, but what I can see is the Islamic community, or the Islamic hardliners and activists, saw this as a wonderful opportunity to bully the Hindu community and make the Hindu for what they consider to be sort of an extreme right Hindu family movement, and they try to blame it on that. And from what was researched into it, there was very little evidence that there were Hindu extremists operating in the Leicester area, and so the extreme Islamists who lived in Leicester used an excuse to extend their freedom and bully the Hindus in Leicester. And in fact, what I was saying to you before the programme was, the events happened in September 2022, and in January 2023, the Leicester police put out a photograph of 10 people what they wanted to interview with regard to violence at the various events, both there and also at the Hindu temple in Smethwick, in the West Midlands near Birmingham. And the notes here if I can for a second. The Active Muslim Leicester group looked at the police press release, and all 10 people who were wanted for violent offences were all Muslims, and they objected to it. It's plain facts that the people who were stoking the violence and revolving the violence were all Muslims, and there was not one Hindu arrested whatsoever.
Talk to us about this particular study that came out in the Telegraph MSN article that just came out 2 days ago about Muslim pupils
Sure.
were threatening Hindu students,
Sure.
and they were telling them to convert to Islam to
Sure.
avoid bullying. Talk to
Exactly. Us. Well, indeed, yeah. It was work done by the Henry Jackson Society. Charlotte Littlewood was the lady who was a research fellow who did it, and she wrote to 998 Hindu parents and 1,000 schools to find out what was going on. So she obviously did quite a bit of work involved in that. It's not just bullying or converting. It was things like, some Hindu children were slapped in the face with beef. They mocked Hindu deities. They were being called kafir. They were criticising their views on Israel. It really was an Islamic hate fest against Hindus, and and most people in this country, the establishment of this country, are so scared of standing up to Muslims. It's probably for two reasons. They don't want to be accused of being racist. They don't want to be accused of being Islamophobic. But most importantly, I think they realise that if they do stand up to Muslims in this country, there could be violence, and certainly going to be intimidation. Did you also read about the autistic boy in West Yorkshire who scuffed the Quran?
Tell me about that. I did not see that particular publication.
Okay. Right. A 14-year-old autistic boy who attended a state school lost a video game, and his forfeiture was to bring a Quran in. So he had to go out and buy a Quran and bring it in, and he got scuffed. Some Muslims that have accused the boys of kicking it around, and when the Muslims found out, he got death threats. And he was, and also the people of the local mosque knocked on his mother's door, came in and intimidated the mother, and she was forced to go to the local mosque, put on a veil, and basically plead for her life. And if you look at the audience, it was full of middle-aged, elderly Muslim men. It was packed to the rafters. And on the platform at the top there were the local local imams and clerics and what have you. And the disgusting thing about it was there was a chief inspector of the West Yorkshire Police supporting them. Now, this woman was, it's absolutely disgusting. And you could see she was scared out of her wits. Saying, well, my boy's been he's been very naughty. He's going to be punished for this. And the school and the police did nothing about the death threats because they are so scared of standing up to Islam. Because I'm pretty sure if it was a robust rebuttal against Islamic extremism in this country, there will be riots in the streets, and no politician wants to see that on their watch. So the easiest thing for them to do is give in to the Muslims, and let them get their way. The outrages, the outrages get worse by the year. For example, you can't burn a Quran. Burning a Quran in this country is completely legal. No one will bat an eyelid if you burnt a Bible. You can't show any images of Muhammad. And the latest outrage that some of the more extremist Muslims have been doing, they've been going into Tesco stores, chain of supermarkets, and they've been picking out the dates and seeing if they were imported from Israel, and they're putting signs on it, boycott apartheid Israel. And funnily enough, you can have a world exclusive here. I complained about this to the police, the local police. And the police phoned me up today. They had a word with Tesco's. Tesco's don't want to do anything, and they got away scot-free yet again. So you're now giving carte blanche to any Muslim extremist in this country to go in and deface and destroy any Israeli goods and services that are imported into this country.
You mentioned about beef, right?
Yeah.
It was found that these pupils, one of them, were actually thrown beef at Hindu student. The reason I want to talk about it is very interesting because they say that Muslims are in danger in India, and Hindus, regardless, or Hindu diaspora overall in the outside of Indian subcontinent is getting punished for that particular narrative that Muslims are being genocided in India. Now, they talk about Muslims are being killed and persecuted and discriminated in India, and that's why the attacks against Hindus are happening everywhere else, including UK, entire Europe, as Australia, United States. So I saw the Imam Muhammad Hijab, I suppose. He was found to be guilty of instigating or lying about Hindu extremism.
Right, okay. I actually know who Muhammad Hijab is, actually. I've actually got his name written on my notes down here. He is from what I can work out, he's an extremist Islamic thug. I've seen him perform at Speaker Corner, and also there's a video of him saying in the Quran there is no age of consent for females, and he was asked what about so he could be a 6-year-old or a 9-year-old. He said no, there is no age consent. There is no sorry, I forgot the word I was looking for. There are no constraints when you marry or have sex with a girl or a woman. Or a girl. I know of the guy, and he was with Ali Dawa were the people in India who was stirring up all the trouble down there, and and the police did nothing again, just for a change. Speaker's Corner is one of Britain's, if not the world's, place where you can go and say within reason what you like. Obviously, incitement to hatred, incitement to violence. You can't do that. Understandable. That's quite reasonable. But apparently, on most Sunday nights, the Muslims turn up and they basically intimidate and bully the other people there. There's a Turkish lady who's a Christian convert from Islam. She goes down there. She's a little bit in your face, but she was actually stabbed by a Muslim down there as well. Stabbed in a place where you go for open discussion. Sorry, you got my favourite subject at the moment, and excuse me if I've sounded a little bit over the top, a little bit too passionate.
What I find that Christianity in the Europe and United States also, it's decreasing by the day.
Oh dear. Well, at the end, I suppose at the end of the day, where your conscience, wants to go to religious wise, that within certain parameters is your prerogative, and I won't criticise somebody for doing that. There's a famous lady who was MEP who's actually a Hindu. She's a Christian Hindu convert. I think my name will come to me later on. No, it happens, and I don't want to press people on their consciences, but nevertheless, if you look at it as a political point of view as opposed to a personal point of view, this is a worry. The people are being sucked into what I consider in some ways nearly to be a cult, and it's a very, very extreme and unpragmatic cult. And the fact they're getting positions in academia like this in Cambridge, I think is a worry.
You mentioned about Huggism. Let me tell you one of the quote I found out in that particular article, what they said to the Hindu pupils. You are not going to survive very long. If you want to go to paradise, you will have to come to Islam. Hindus are the herbivores at the bottom of the food chain. We will eat you up.
Well, to my mind, if I was the head teacher, those pupils will be dragged into my study and say, if you repeat that, you are expelled. In fact, that's possibly an immediate suspension. And if you ever repeat it again, you're going to be automatically expelled, from the school. But you can't have that kind of religious bigotry knocking around in school, But again, the head teacher will be really worried about being intimidated, bullied, even physically struck into silence. This is how bad things are getting in Britain at the moment.
I find that in UK, there's only 1% of schools who's reporting anti-Hindu hate crimes, or their media is poorly reporting as well. The spin around it most of the time is a Muslim person who's being allowed or given the prime time to cry victims on the media.
Sure.
And while Hindus are the one who's getting persecuted, and I've seen during Leicester violence as well, most of the Hindus were so scared that they were actually leaving Leicester area, afraid of getting killed.
They moved out. We moved out temporarily. That. Well, indeed, yeah. Basically, you had mobs of Muslims rampaging in and around the Hindu areas of Leicester. Windows were smashed. People were assaulted. Two of them got arrested for carrying knives. It really was the most unedifying spectacle. And the police, again, did nothing. And when they did do something, they issued these 10 photographs of apparently Muslims who they wanted to interview for violent offences. The local Muslim community complained that they were picking on the Muslims, not because they were the people responsible for the violence.
Well, it's not just the violence, but the belittling of the deities and mocking the Hindu cultures, traditions, vegetarianism, open hatred just going unabated. That particular article also spoke about one incident of where a Christian student belittled a Hindu student, saying Jesus will send your gods to hell. We're not going to be focusing on specifically on that aspect of it, but I do see my point is that I do see a systematic discrimination and hate against Hindus outside India, regardless of what the politics of India is.
To be fair, that you have to look upon that incident for the Christian towards the Hindu, particularly in Britain, as being very, very rare. In Britain, Hindus are British Indians are highly respected in this country, and they work hard. They come from stable families. 1 in 12 of our doctors is of British Hindu ancestry heritage, and very, very rarely hear a bad word about Hindus in this country. And along with the Chinese and Jewish people, who are working hard, talented people, people by and large only hold these people in respect, and even to a certain extent, I think the average Hindu earns 50% more than the average Christian. Because most of you guys, you're sent to school. Your mum and dad make sure you do your homework, and you make sure that you go to university. Make sure you work hard. Often brought up, possibly in the shop, whereby Sunday morning you got out of bed, turfed out of bed, go and mark the newspapers up and go and serve the customers. No, it's anti-Hindu from Christians in Britain is extremely rare, and in fact, the vast majority of Hindus are held with the greatest of respect. In fact, most of my Indian followers who are British born, you look at my tweets, agree with me. In fact, there's a British Hindu who's a barrister. We're trying to get a program together on Talk TV. He's so articulate, and we agree on most aspects of politics. So we're actually trying to get a TV program together for this. So you might see the Dave and Pab show.
Oh, that's interesting. So, I mean, I have seen one MP who had been mentioned about, Ben Everett, had talked about this particular report
Sure.
and the study that was found out in terms of research.
Sure.
Mentioned these findings were damning. That's the only, I believe that is the only MP who has spoken about it. But what do the Hindu community do? It's not just Leicester, but Hindu communities are everywhere, even though very minuscule, let's say. Overall, I have not seen any Hindu going to any country to convert that particular country into Hinduism or even invade the country.
Well, indeed. You're hitting nails on the head here. I look upon Hinduism as being a fairly passive and take it a fairly passive religion, whereby you have your piety, but you don't impose that on somebody else. I think it was Afghanistan. Afghanistan. 87% of Afghanistanis believe that it's their duty to convert other people to Islam. I'm sure if you ask that question of Hindus and Christians, that figure probably would be, I don't know, 10%, if that. That's my instinctive figure on that. Obviously, the 19th century, 18th and 19th century, when British missionaries went to Pakistan and India and did convert people, they were different times. You probably find very rarely these days that Christian missionaries do come over to India or certainly not Pakistan and try and convert the people over. We're a far more secular, relaxed society in that respect. But then again, you have the fire-breathing, Islamists in this country who want to take over the country, introduce Sharia law, and convert everybody over to Islam. We'll lock you up or make you pay taxes, extra taxes, or you're dead. So it really is quite frightening what's going.
What do you think about recent appointment or actually alignment of first Muslim Prime Minister of Scotland, Hamza Yusuf?
Oh, Hamza Useless, as we call him. From what I can understand, Hamza speaks with forked tongue. One of the things that precipitated the crisis up in Scotland was this gender recognition act that they passed, and it basically if you put on a frock, and you put on a wig and put some lipstick, and you're a bloke, you can call yourself a woman. And if you commit a criminal offence and go to jail, you can go to a woman's prison. And that seemed backfired on them, because the day the act was passed, a man was jailed for 5 years for raping a woman in a prison. I shouldn't laugh, because obviously the woman was the victim there. And one of the greatest enthusiasts for the act was Hamza Yusuf, who is a practicing Muslim. And I did notice that in the comments where this was going on, sort of tweets about Hamza Youssef, a lot of the Muslims turned around and said he's going to get some grief on Friday when he goes down the mosque. Because his views are completely out of kilter with the vast majority of the Muslim population. For example, there was a poll done of Muslims by Channel 4, which is a bit of a lefty TV station, and they found that 52% of British Muslims would make homosexual acts illegal. So he's, does his faith, will his faith interfere with his with him being First Minister of Scotland? Good question. I'm sure it will do in some ways, but I think every single office he's held, like health or justice or whatever, has been complete and utter failure. In fact, a lot of English people who believe in the union, British people who believe in the union of Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and England, are secretly very pleased he's First Minister, because he's going to make a complete mess of things. So we're pleased about that. But to answer your question, I really don't think his faith will interfere too much with what he's doing. He's just an idiot who's going to end his party, the Scottish National Party. But that's the end of them. That's the end of them, I think, in my opinion.
Britain has a Hindu origin prime minister, and now you have Pakistan origin prime minister in Scotland.
Sure. Well, it's to be fair, Marina, it's one of the great things about Britain. We don't judge we don't judge you by your religion or your skin colour. I don't dislike Rishi Sunak because he's a brown Indian. I dislike Hamza Youssef and Rishi Sunak because I don't agree with his policies. My pick the Prime Minister now will be Kemi Badenoch. She's a Nigerian. She's of Nigerian heritage. She's British, but obviously of Nigerian heritage. That's the lady I want to be our next Prime Minister after Rishi Sunak. British people are really quite fair, and they're really quite objective in the way they look at people and what kind of opinions they have. So, so Rishi Sunak, I think he's improving. I still don't agree with his opinions, but the fact he's a British Hindu heritage and his wife's an Indian Hindu, I really don't care. It really is completely irrelevant.
Well, as long as he's doing good for the British.
He's not.
People.
He's not. I want Liz Truss.
Well, I have seen one aspect of him that he has taken on the Pakistani grooming gang issue. So hopefully that will be a good one.
Well, what he said and Suella Braverman said about Pakistani rape gangs. Good grief! I nearly fell off my chair. You can't say that. You can't say that in this country. It was a breath of fresh air. I must say, on reflection, maybe Sunak is growing on me for being so frank, because for 30 years, something like 500,000 English girls were raped by Muslim men, and you were never, for 30 years, we weren't allowed to talk about it. You were a racist, you were an Islamophobe, you were a bigot. Apart from me, because I'll say what I like. So I really will say what I like. But the fact we've now got it literally at Prime Minister level in this country, that's a good thing. Oh, by the way, very briefly, I will make one point. There are lots of decent, moderate Muslims in this country, probably a vast majority as well. Who some of my most enthusiastic followers are ex-Muslims actually. They're of Pakistani heritage as well. But what I think Islam and Muslims in this country are handicapped by is, the moderate Muslims who live in Britain, the extremist Muslims, their tail wags the moderate dog. Probably is an 80-20 split. 80% of British Muslims are perfectly okay, and 20% are basically Stone Age barbarians and Stone Age whatever it is. But the point is that the extremist 20% run the agenda for the 80% who are decent and moderate.
There is a rule called 80-20. 80% issues are actually caused by 20%.
Sure.
You can apply it anywhere, any kind of circumstances, but generalizing. Sure. But this particular issue is also seen in the Khalistani issue in the UK and Australia, America, sure. Canada. You're absolutely right from a perspective of how things happens in terms of shaping narratives, though. Sure. It does hurt the community. If the entire Sikh community doesn't speak about what the Khalistanis are doing, then you can imagine most people are feeling a bit uneasy on that. But as we wrap up, you mentioned earlier about Afghanistan and how they wanted to establish Sharia.
Yeah, 99% of Afghanis want to live under Sharia law.
Now they haven't, 100%. What do you say to the Hindu community first in UK after this Leicester incident event in Discord? What should they do when they don't have the voice?
Try and get one. Try and get one. Put them in. If they want to, put them in touch with me. My Twitter account is DavidAtherton20. If they want to advise what to do, write to the local councillor, write to the local MP. Join the Conservative Party, make sure your voice is heard. There are Hindu representative bodies in this country. There's a lot, and there are Hindu MPs as well as the Prime Minister. And I'm pretty sure there's a Friends of India. Conservative Party's got a Friends of India section as well. So get writing, get tweeting. Most importantly, keep in touch with your local MP. Keep in touch with your local councillors. And also keep in touch with the local police as well, because it sounds a little bit sour. But if you have a brown skin in this country, you tend to be taken a little bit more seriously than if you were white. As a generalisation, but certainly if you're Hindu, you're British Indian, and you can play, you're Dravid Patel, you're complaining about noisy mosques. You'll be taken a lot more seriously than if I wrote that email or letter.
Well, I see the same thing in the United States as well. The white-skinned Christian persons are getting unnecessarily dragged down, silenced, and persecuted, even though they may not have done anything.
I know.
Obviously, the focus on crime is not there. It's about identity politics and religion and skin color. This is what's happening, I think, in Western countries specifically. So what would you say to the media in UK especially, and politicians who are not becoming the voice or actually standing by the truth and amplifying lies and deception?
Well, we have exposed these people, and and most importantly, I always think one of the most important things you can do is stand for election. There's nothing worse than than somebody who thinks they're going to lose their seat, and they all of a sudden take notice of what you're saying. So that's the most important thing. Form groups. If you have 50 to 100,000 people in your group in this country, the government takes you very, very seriously. That's probably worth about two or three seats to a political party. So be organised, get writing, stay in touch, be nice, be reasonable, don't be a bigot, and just keep going and making your point.
Thank you very much, David. It was an absolute pleasure connecting with you. I'm sure we will have more going on, but this is it for today, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, and give me a shout anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David. I will tag his Twitter account in this